There we go. Okay. Coming up, Dana Delany joins Illeana in just a minute.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies.
And now, it's the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast, starring Illeana Douglas. Eavesdrop with Illeana as she interviews Hollywood's most prominent players about filmmaking, acting, and what really happens on the set of your favorite flicks and TV shows.
That's right. Hi, everyone. I'm Illeana Douglas. Welcome to the I Blame Dennis Hopper podcast. I'm here with my lovely co-host, Tamara Bird.
Hi.
How you doing today?
I'm good. I have missed you this week.
Thank you. I missed you, too. I missed
Truly.
you and your snacks. We always...
We always have snacks.
We always have snacks. We combine. We're like George Costanza. We're instead of sex and food, it's movies and food.
Yeah,
My two
absolutely. Sometimes when I'm late here, it's because I'm busy making snacks. It happens.
I know, me too. I feel such guilt. Last night I was like, I gotta make the peanut butter with the cup.
You make delicious peanut butter. You
Why,
notice
thank
I took last week's extra and took it home with me.
I'm
I did
thrilled.
not leave it, so
I'm thrilled.
I took
I'm
it with
thrilled.
me. Yeah,
I'm thrilled.
absolutely.
See, so for people out there, they should know that when they come on our show, we will feed you.
Oh, and they're not ordinary snacks.
No,
not at all.
Talking
It's not like
gluten-free,
homemade, delicious.
pretty, all sorts of fruit.
Absolutely.
It's great.
So I was thinking about this.
Yes.
Dana Delany is
Yeah.
on the show, and she is one of the actors who has transitioned between TV and film.
Mm-hmm.
So with this being, a lot of people are calling now the golden age of television because there are so many outlets and opportunities for people, right?
Yes,
So you have worked in both.
I have.
I would like you to talk about the difference between the two media.
Well, I'm a purist, and I prefer film.
You do.
I know that this is called the golden age of television. I'm the I don't buy it. I think
Really?
I think we have this need in our society to make everything we're doing currently
The best
like
and most.
Zumba. Like it's the best. Well, there was maybe many things before Zumba, but so for me, I think the golden age of television was in fact the original golden age of television, which was John Frankenheimer and Patty Chayefsky and Sidney Lumet was directing, and Rod Serling was writing. Horton Foote, great playwright, was when I used to go to acting school, I lived at the Museum of Broadcasting right near the neighborhood playhouse. Oh my God, my roommate and I, every day we were watching these archival footage of the live television shows. And for me personally, that is the golden age of television. And what's interesting about that time period was that in terms of Hollywood, films were changing, and they
Right.
CinemaScope. There was also the Blacklist, which hurt a lot of careers, so a lot of people moved east. They were doing theater, and the golden age of television came from these Broadway actors,
Right.
Broadway playwrights moving into television.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have now, it seems, is yes, you have all these great stars from films transitioning to television, but because there aren't any great film roles,
Right.
And I still, for me personally, I like a 2-hour journey of a film. I like a beginning. I love a good story. I love a beginning, a middle, a high point, an end, and then the walk home alone in the rain, where you can go, what the hell did I?
What just happened?
What did I just see? Like the movie The Lobster. We could spend the whole show talking about The Lobster, because I was like, well, is it brilliant? Is it horrible? I don't know why.
Yes.
Is it disturbing? It's combine my two favorite words, unsettling and disturbing. But that's what I love. So I am a purist. I love the cinematic journey. I do love watching television. I mean, I certainly loved Mad Men. I love the Sopranos. For me, a show like The Sopranos or 6 Feet Under probably came, for me personally, the closest to great, epic television. And then before that, Mary Tyler Moore and All in the Family, but that was a different. It seems like, again, different to what's happening now. My issue with television now is that all these great directors that are directing in television, it feels a little flat for me personally. Even though I sit there and I watch it and I love it,
Yeah.
and again, there's so many shows out there that are really, really good, and the writing is really good. So I feel like there's something wrong with me. Like, why am I not as excited to see this, major film star in this role? Why do I still prefer her?
John,
May
do you
I
have
pose
it?
a theory?
Yes,
This
sure.
is
Is it
one of our
because-
producers, John.
Yes. Is it because of the experience of actually going to a theater where you're in that huge room, the lights go down, and as opposed to TV when you're mostly at home and there's all kinds of other
Yeah.
things? Do you think it's partly that because of the context in which you see the film?
I definitely think so. And again, I think that the aura of the star, the star turn.
And because they're
Exactly.
huge on the
When you see them on the small screen, it's a little unsettling. I remember there was the show about Broadway, and it was going to be such a big deal because Angelica Houston was going to be in it.
Smash. I
Smash.
covered AfterBuzz for that show. Yeah.
And I was, and please forgive me because, boy, nobody loves Broadway more than me, Broadway. I take a Broadway
Jazz
dance class.
hands.
I'm obsessed with Broadway. And I just watched the show and I was like, oh, God, I love it. I love Angelica Houston, but I was like, it's just that impact. It's not cinematic.
I will say, I think on that show in particular, it felt to me, because like I said, I did the AfterBuzz for it, so we've talked a lot about it. It felt to me like there were a whole lot of producers putting their input in that show, because it was going one way and then it would go another way, and I was continually throwing my implausibility flag when I was watching that show. It just seemed to me like so much, it was so hard just to suspend disbelief, because they would just all of a sudden some crazy ass plot point would come up, and it felt like so many people sticking their spoons in the batter, you know, and really taking it off. But can we talk about like the difference for preparation as far as like acting goes when you're in TV versus film?
Well, again, for me personally, I prefer the experience of film.
Yeah.
Because you can measure your performance in a 2-hour sequence. It's like doing a Broadway play.
Right.
Okay, this is going to be the highlight, and I'm going to do this. And I just love the whole contemplative experience of driving to a film set, listening to music, talking to the director in the morning, what the scene is going to be about, where the scene lands in terms of the 2-hour structure.
On TV, you don't get that at all.
No, television is like, come on, we need to go. You're like, you're just a tiny cog in the wheel of a machine.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to feel, even when you're on a top show, as if you're an important part of the structure, unless you're the star of the show.
Let me ask you this then, because
Yes.
that's when you're in a weekly.
Yes.
Because now that Netflix, all these other platforms are opening up, they're not confined to that weekly schedule necessarily. I mean,
Because they all get released
they
all
get
at
released
once.
all at once, and they can't. I mean, obviously they have a schedule because they have productions and they have budgets and all that other stuff. But I don't. My experience of that is that they're not as confined. Would you think that would lend itself to being more similar to a film experience?
Well, it just, again, it doesn't feel like there are those highs, that real high that you get from doing an incredible scene in a movie and everyone goes, oh my God, that was incredible. And, that's lunch or that's a wrap, And
Let's go.
there's just something glamorous about movie making.
Yeah.
And when you drive on the lot of like a 20th Century Fox, and even if you've been asked to be, and I'm going to, it's funny, I'm going to go mid-sentence and suddenly disagree with myself.
Perfect.
When I felt that way was when I was doing Entourage. Boy, what a glamorous, you just drove up to the lot and you saw 80,000 trailers.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm doing an important show.
Yeah.
But that's the kid in me. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I'm on Entourage. It
is
great.
It's
That felt very glamorous and fun. Jeremy Piven is incredible and created such a incredible character. And so it really felt fun to be a cog in the wheel in that show. And because then it's like you're playing with the Yankees, now the Cubs, where you're like, wow, let me hit a home run. Yeah. I really, when I was going to be on the show, I really, and again, Doug Ellen, who ran that show, kudos to him, because when I came on to do the show, you just pray, you go in there and like I said, you just want to give your all. And somebody like Doug Ellen, you throw some stuff out there, and sometimes the director goes, all right, you know what, Illeana, just do the lines. Okay, please, we got lunch here. Cut. But I started having fun and doing improv, and he was like, oh, this is terrific, this is great, just keep it up. And boy, there's nothing, that's what I learned about being a director myself, creating that atmosphere where people don't feel afraid and they really want to give their best. But most of the time, again, when I've done television shows, I feel a huge money pressure that they've got to get this scene because they've got 20 other scenes, and you're there, and I always feel like I'm trying to sneak in something funny or do something interesting, or oftentimes, again, this lie that they tell actors, so wonderful, but like we all know it's not true, is they always say if you do a great job, they're going to have you on as a regular. They always say that. That's always the hook. It's never once happened to me, and I've been in show business since 1987. I'm still waiting for that to happen.
We have Dana coming in now.
Yes.
I just want to say quickly that
Sure.
Did you ever watch the show Justified on FX?
Yes.
Amazing show. I ran
Wonderful
into
show.
one of the actresses from that show last week and was talking to her about it, and she was saying, hey, Dana, I'll get out of your way in just a second.
Yes.
She was talking about how much she missed the show because it was really like that family atmosphere, because you keep going for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yes. And you're celebrating a Christmas thing. So I want to do...
Okay, let's bring Dana in.
I want to talk about my friend Dana, who you may know, how I first saw. I actually first saw you in a Paul Schrader film.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because I used to work for Peggy Siegel, and
That's right.
and Paul Schrader was a client, so that's how I discovered you. But of course, your Emmy-winning role on the Vietnam drama China Beach, as well as many film appearances such as Tombstone, Fly Away Home, Wide Awake, and of course Desperate Housewives. You were amazing on Desperate Housewives. And she is an amazing actress who loves to play complicated characters.
Who doesn't?
Please welcome Dana Delany, and most recently Hand of God.
Yes.
Which was also, we were just talking before you got here about the transition away from movies to things happening on television, and whether or not it's the golden age of television. I said I'm a purist. Like, for me, the golden age of television was the 50s.
The 50s, yeah.
And this is good. I like this. It's great. I love that people are working, but...
It seems like every age is a golden age of television. Don't they always use that phrase?
Well, the last time was, I guess it was like, well, they said that Mary Tyler Moore was sort of like the great sitcom, you know. But your experience of working on, it's a classic question, but the experience of working on television versus working on films, do you have a preference?
I think as a woman, I think TV's better. I've always thought that, especially as you get older. But I just think, you know what it's like now in major movies, you're just the supporting character. You're the wife, the girlfriend, whatever.
You're the one behind the door, I always say.
Yeah, you're the one saying, honey, are you sure? Do you think so?
You're the supportive wife. You're the horrible ex-wife.
Yes, exactly.
I'm always the horrible ex-wife.
At least that's more interesting.
That's what I was going to say. At least that's a more interesting character other than standing there just looking pretty.
Oh, honey.
You know?
I'm worried.
Exactly.
I come in and get to yell at the comedian. I've done a lot of those.
But the one who gets to hold the knife a lot of times, you know?
Yes. So we always start the show off with it's my favorite question of all time, of course, because I thought of it, is
Natch.
Is do you remember the first movie you saw, and who took you to see it?
You know, the one that sticks out, I'm not sure it was the first one, but was The Music Man.
Really?
Yeah.
With Robert Preston.
Yes. 1962, so I was 6 years old.
Wow.
And And I loved it so much. And those were the days where you got the album, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember at that age memorizing the whole album. And I know I did because when I went to school, probably first grade, I asked the teacher whether I could sing Goodnight, My Someone to the class. And I've never had the nerve to do something like that again in my life. I don't know how I got it then. But I got up and sang the song. I think all the kids were looking at me like, what? Why are we listening to this girl do this?
Did you do show and tell?
Yes.
I wonder if they still do that. That for someone who's like a budding actor.
Yeah.
I think that's where it begins with like, I was obsessed with show and tell. Like, and if somebody had something better than me, I'd be like, God damn it. I remember once I had made an entire terrarium, you know, I was like,
oh yeah.
And then this stupid kid in my class brought in a rooster. And I was
you can't beat a
totally
rooster.
upstaged you.
You can't beat the cock.
Yeah. They were like,
Thank you, Dana.
thank you. She's working blue. But I love that. So early on. And then who took you to see The Music Man? I love hearing.
I really got my love of movies from my father. So it probably was my father. You know, grew up in Brooklyn in the 30s, and that was when you could see 5 movies a day, and he did.
Oh,
and,
wow.
And he kept a diary, which I still have. And he would rate the movies and write little reviews. He would just sit in the cinema all day long. You know, and they had shows and cartoons and all that stuff. So, and then he had like big books, coffee table books of, you know, all the cast and the crew, and before IMDb.
Yeah.
And I used to sit there as a kid and just memorize them, you know, like memorize who the costumer was and who the cameraman was and all that stuff. Yeah, I was obsessed.
Oh, we used to have all those great I mean, I still have a lot of my movie books. I would do that same thing where you'd look at the picture. Well, one of my favorites was Life Goes to the Movies.
Oh, I remember that.
I had a big, and I would go through and every photograph. So if there was a photograph of Jack Lemmon from the Days of Wine and Roses, like it was in sections. So there'd be like war movies, this kind of, you know, then one section was like kind of, you know, heartache. Yeah. So there was Rock Hudson from Seconds, Jack Lemmon, Days of Wine and Roses. I didn't even know what the movies were.
Right.
But like I'd look at the image and then I'd have to check off in my life, like, okay, now I've
got
seen
that
Seconds.
one.
Yeah. I've seen this one, you know. Did you have actors or actresses you were obsessed with? Everybody knows about mine. I wrote about that. I was obsessed with Richard Dreyfuss.
Right,
I was
right.
obsessed.
Yeah.
Like, literally pretended he was my friend. And then he became...
And now he is.
I know. I stalked him until he eventually accepted me.
Until he gave in.
I was a little weird. I mean, you and I grew up in the age where you had the 4:30 movie.
Yes.
So you would just... I never went out to play. I was never outside. I was home on the couch eating and watching the 4:30 movie, you know. And my friends used to say, God, you went through a whole bag of Fig Newtons. I mean, I was just known for that. But I was like the second lead. I didn't like the lead. I found the second lead more interesting. Like in Singing in the Rain, I liked Lena Lamont better than Debbie Reynolds, you know. And my favorite was Gloria Graham. I was obsessed with Gloria Graham.
Really?
Yeah.
What Gloria Graham movie?
Well, In a Lonely Place is my favorite movie.
That's your favorite movie?
That's my favorite movie, yeah.
I'm obsessed with that movie. I just wrote about it for the Criterion Collection. You got to be careful showing this.
I know. People are mixed about that movie.
Yeah, very mixed.
Why?
Well, do you want to go first?
Well, it's funny. It's a very dark view of Hollywood and of relationships,
Yes.
but it's also beautiful, I think.
Yeah.
And I remember I was friends with John Calley, who was running Sony for a while, and I said, we should do a remake of In a Lonely Place, and he said, yeah, and so he screened it for Mike Nichols, and Mike Nichols said to him, no.
Well, it represents it's a film noir by Nicholas Ray, and Nicholas Ray did Rebel Without a Cause.
Okay.
Did another movie I love called Bigger Than Life, which is a similar theme in a way. So Humphrey Bogart is this alcoholic writer, and he's supposed to read this book. He's supposed to have a meeting about turning this book into a screenplay, and he's known as a brawler. And on the night that he meets this girl who's a co-check girl, and he is gonna basically have her read him this book because he doesn't want to. He's so could care less. Doesn't want to read it. She mysteriously is murdered, and because he's such a violent guy, he kind of gets accused of this crime. Meanwhile, the person he's in love with is Gloria Graham, who's living across in this courtyard apartment, and so she can sort of vouch for him, and they get involved in this relationship. But he starts, the more and more they get involved, the more violent he becomes, and it's quite disturbing how violent he becomes.
And it's really about trust. Can you really trust somebody? Can you really know who somebody is? And Nick Ray made it when his marriage to Gloria Graham was falling apart.
Yes.
Because in the original Dorothy Hughes book, he is guilty. It was one of the first books written about a serial killer. It's a really good book.
Yeah. So in the original Dorothy Hughes movie, who wrote, I'm going to do another crossover. Have you ever seen a movie called Ride the Pink Horse, which is also by Dorothy?
Never seen that.
Oh my God, another incredible story. Dorothy P. Hughes, Ride the Pink Horse. Did the movie, Robert Montgomery, and he directed it.
He directed it?
Yeah, one of my favorite. I put it on my Criterion top 10.
Oh, I gotta look at that one.
So In a Lonely Place, and because they have these interesting parallels about women and trust and how a woman can change her life. But it also sort of, again, weirdly represents a theory, an idea of like, he loves me so much that he beats me. You know, there is a little bit of an undercurrent in the movie that is like, this is supposed to be, he like slaps people around, and he's, and Nick Ray, who is the director, presents this guy as, that's the kind of guy you should be, a real man, drinks, roughs people up. When they don't agree with him, he punches them out, breaks their glasses, So it does have this kind of...
and it's got this kind of... But he doesn't really mean it. He's sensitive underneath it all.
And then...
Isn't it amazing how those kind of attitudes just don't ever change in certain situations?
No, and there's another, very weird undercurrent in the film with Gloria Graham, because the movie begins, and she has just moved into this courtyard apartment.
I love that whole complex. It's so Hollywood.
Yeah, it's so Hollywood. It's like, what's going on between everybody's apartment? But she has this, I guess, lesbian masseuse that comes over. And she keeps talking about her masseuse that comes over. She goes, yeah, she likes to beat me black and blue. And then there's a scene of Gloria Graham naked with her friend, I think her name is Martha, who's like massaging her, and she goes, we ain't gonna get out of this one as easily as the last one. So you kind of get the impression that Gloria Graham goes from like one man after another who...
And she chooses badly.
Yeah, right. It kind of beats her. We ain't gonna get out of this one as easy as the last one, And it's like, oh, geez, what do Martha and Gloria have going, But it's that dark...
But it's all so romantic. The final line, is so famous.
Yes,
right?
the one, I died when I...
Yeah, I was born when I met her. I lived while she loved me, and I died when she left.
Yes.
Something like that. I was born when she kissed me. Yeah.
And but it for certain, and I wrote about this, certain movies I've done, and people would ask for a recommendation, and I would have like a leading man. I'd be like, you need to see In a Lonely Place, and sometimes with good results, and sometimes like, why would you send me that movie? Why would you want me to? You think I beat my women?
Well, this is something about me. I think it's highly romantic.
It is. It's incredible. And again, Nick Ray.
Right, we know something about Dana now.
And because of, but what's interesting about In a Lonely Place, which is what I wrote about in the Criterion piece, is that in the next film he did, so he and Gloria Graham break up, but then he did another film, Bigger Than Life, with James Mason, in which James Mason also tries to kill his wife.
Yes.
And again, in that film, it's this whole kind of, destruction of the American family. She's like the perfect wife, and he's got this beautiful son. And again, there's this sort of pivotal scene where he goes insane, and he's trying to like kill his own son, like sort of kill the American family. So I don't know, Nick Ray had
definitely issues.
interesting ideas about masculinity, but I think Humphrey Bogart did. And again, the real life Humphrey Bogart in his marriage to
Bacall?
it's Mayo.
Yeah.
They were called like the battling Bogarts,
right.
So again, he had been, they frequently were like brawling, drinking, and this seems to be like a somewhat of an honorable thing. But
he got kicked out of the high school I went to.
He did?
Yes.
And where now, did you grew up here or
in Connecticut?
Oh,
like you.
He was Humphrey Bogart?
No, he went to boarding school in Andover and he got kicked out. And the rumor is, it's never been verified, that he tied a teacher to a chair and threw him in the lake.
Wow.
So who knows?
Tough guy.
Yeah, he's in high school.
Now, did you like going to private schools? I always loved private school movies.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And books for me. I would always read those.
That is exactly why I went. Really? I only went for my senior year, but my parents were splitting up. It was my junior year, and I was in Virginia. We'd moved from Connecticut to Virginia. And I had gone to public school in Connecticut, but the public schools were so much more advanced than the private schools in Virginia then.
Really?
That I was repeating stuff. And I reread a separate piece, which is at boarding school, and I fell in love with the idea of boarding school. So without my parents knowing it, I applied to Andover and Exeter, because Exeter was in the book. And I got in, and I didn't even know it was the first year they took girls.
Wow.
It was all just chance, the whole thing. And I went to my
amazing.
father and I said, "Can I go?" He went, "Okay." You little weirdo.
Wow.
And it kind of changed my life. I loved it.
Was it as romantic and
It was exactly
amazing?
what I wanted it to be.
Was it? Oh, isn't that fabulous?
Yeah, it really was. It was great.
And did they have an acting program?
Yeah, I did. Jimmy Spader was there when I was there.
Oh my
He
goodness.
was years behind me. Yeah, I was in South Pacific. I was Nellie Forbush.
Wow.
But it was just, it was a high school.
I know, but still, that's sort of, I always remember the people that did, there was like the people that did really well in high school and in acting school, and I was never part of that.
Well,
I was always like, I'm going to start my own avant-garde theater company. We don't need you.
Yeah, but I read your book. I mean, you had chutzpah. I never had the chutzpah you had.
Really?
Yes, you just went after it. I was impressed.
You can't think of, well, I was reading about, again, you auditioned for China Beach and you didn't get it, and then you went back and re-audition.
No, you know what?
Like, isn't that?
No, that's a whole.
That's
It's
not.
a myth?
That's a myth.
That's a
that
myth?
whole thing.
Ooh, set us
Set
straight.
it straight.
Yeah. I don't know why people. I don't know who started that one. No, what happened was, and it was totally genuine because I'm not clever enough to think of this. I wanted this role so badly because it was an unusual role for a woman. I mean,
It was amazing.
when I read the script, I thought, this is Clint Eastwood. And that's why I imagined in my head Clint Eastwood. So I was trying to stay in my head as Clint Eastwood, and I'm waiting in the outside room to go in and meet with the producer, and I'm sitting there for like 45 minutes, and he comes out, looks at me, and finally he says, "Are you Dana Delany?" I went, "Yeah." He goes, "Come here," and I go into his room. He goes, "You're a day early." I said, "What?" He goes, "You're a day early." I said, "Okay, so you have to come back tomorrow."
Oh wow.
And I said, "Okay." And I was so psyched. I was ready to read,
Sure.
So I came back the next day and auditioned again, and then they made me audition a billion times after that. But he, I think, thought I did it on purpose to like get an upper
You're doing like a
hand on
Sean
it.
Young.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you think it worked in your favor or not?
I don't know. I mean, I got the part.
Yeah,
That's
evidently.
amazing. Now, I want to ask you about, you just said something which, like, people, again, don't understand. They think, like, because people say, well, you get offered things all the time. It's like, no, you audition 80 times, and most of the time you don't get it anyway.
Yeah.
But you talked about, because I've certainly I've collapsed. Like, when you get around audition number 8,
Yeah.
I can't do it. I fold.
Yeah.
I don't get better. Do you, each time when you get in, do you get, when you go through that? Because it's a mental.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
thing.
back then, I really didn't know what I was doing at all. So that was just.
But each time you go
fortitude.
in, there's more people in the room. You start,
Yeah, well,
there's
especially
5 people,
network, yeah.
Suddenly there's 30 people watching.
Yeah.
It's like a coliseum suddenly.
I mean, at this point, I mean, the grace of age is I don't care.
You don't?
I do
Oh,
it
I
for
still-
me now.
Really?
You know, and if I please myself, that's all I can do. Back then, it meant so much more.
That's sort
Yes.
of what Ed Begley Jr. talked about. You know, any opportunity to act. Was,
Yes.
You know, he's like, I get to go and show these people what I do.
Yeah,
I start to get in my own head when it gets into that. Okay, now you're the third. You know, this is the third time, and it's between you and somebody else. You know, I start to
Doubt.
Yeah. I went for something, and then again, it's a totally true story. You can ask him. We'll have him on and ask him. We got down to like I'd auditioned for this thing 5 times, and they said to me, "This is it. This is it. It's between you and one other person. This is it." And I was like, I get this thing in the bag. I show up. My competition was Richard Lewis. We were both auditioning for the same part, and he said, "Let me ask you, did your agent say it's between you? It's just a matter?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely."
Oh, that's hilarious.
Had it in the bag. I have it in the bag. So it's me getting it. And neither one of us got the part.
Oh!
And a couple days later, he called me and he told me that Wayne Knight got the part.
Well, that's a whole nother way to go.
Wayne Knight, yeah. So neither one of us, me, Richard Lewis, Wayne Knight gets the part, and that's show business. So that's what these days again, like you never know. But I start to freak out once it gets to the 20 people in the room.
Yeah, it's a head trip. It really is. That's where meditation and yoga comes in.
Really? I always walk in and I try to make them laugh, which is probably the worst, stupidest thing.
No, I don't think that's bad at all.
Really?
Yeah.
Especially if it alleviates
Do you have any
your...
techniques? I'm always telling people about my techniques for auditioning.
Really? I don't. God.
I'm obsessed. You know what? Way back in the day, do you remember something called the Lort auditions?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
so
yeah.
way
LS.
back in the day, back in the 80s, I'd just gotten out of acting school, and I had done a play with the Actors Theater of Louisville. And I was in New York, and they asked me to represent the Actors Theater of Louisville for something called the Lort auditions at Actors Equity. And it's like every, theater company on the Eastern Seaboard comes.
It's terrifying.
And for 3 days, we saw literally you see 150 people.
So you were on the other side.
Yeah. And it changed my
What year was that? Maybe
life.
I auditioned for you.
I'm going to guess, because I had just gotten out of acting school, I'm going to guess it would have been 1986.
Okay, no, I did it earlier. I was horrible. I was terrible at that.
Here's what I learned.
So wait,
It's
so the process
monologues.
is you're going through
you sit there, so I'm representing the Actors Theater of Louisville quite seriously.
Okay.
Again, I'm there and I'm have to look for people that would be qualified to go audition for their plays, along with, say, 15 other people that are representing the different theaters. And we saw, and I'm not kidding you, 150 auditions a day for 3 days. And what I learned out of that was, out of the hundreds and hundreds of people I saw, literally maybe 20 people were good.
And you just knew.
And so you were saying it was brutal, Dana. Why is that?
Well, you're so young at that point. You're
Yeah.
right out of school. And you have to do a serious classic monologue, and
Classic
then a
monologue.
contemporary, right?
Yeah.
Modern, yeah. And monologues are hard. Not everybody's good at those.
I know. And we had people that came in and drank a beer. We had girls that came in and did a Sharon Stone, and I saw it all. We had one actor, bless his heart. I have you catalog things in your mind. You're like, one day I will be able to put this in a movie. But one day, an older gentleman, bless his heart, literally, because the clock is ticking. You've got 3 minutes or whatever to do this thing, and then a buzzer goes off, and you go, thank you, and then they leave. this gentleman came in with a phone, because we didn't have cell phones, obviously. He came in with a phone and literally was like going to do his monologue on the phone and had the cord like wrapped around. So he was unwrapping and unwrapping and unwrapping. And then so he got the wire done. And then it was like unwrapping and unwrapping and unwrapping. Literally like got the phone up and was like, hello.
Oh, it's like a game show.
And he literally like looked at us pitifully. He goes, thank you very much. As if he had done the monologue. Thank you very much. And I just saw like on people like the fear, they just didn't want to be there. It changed my life about auditioning, about how you should represent yourself.
It's a horrible process, and nobody's come up with anything better.
It is. Right. And I'm not good at it either. I mean, I wish,
because it's not really acting. That's not what acting is.
No. I think it's, but I do think it's the ability to change direction in the room. Like I know when I did, I get this call, it was the very last 10 episodes of Seinfeld. I was like, oh my God, insane. Right. What? So they were like, oh, you gotta go in right away. And they gave me a scene and they said, this isn't even gonna be the scene. They're just giving you the scene and to see what you're gonna do. And I just was like, I'm gonna make Jerry Seinfeld laugh. That's all I'm gonna do. And I did. And everybody laughed and he goes, all right, that was totally not what the scene is about. He goes, but let's do it again now. And do the right thing. And I did. And I think that ability to change and make him laugh, but then also have the ability to follow direction.
Right.
But I try to do stuff like that. And it's risky. Maybe it's risky.
Yeah, but that's a way of making it yours.
Yeah.
You kind of had the conversation then.
Have you ever have you ever had that? I feel like I'm the only one. This is like so confessional. I've had the experience. I've told this story a lot because it's a true story where I had my agent go, they're either going to go black or they're going to go Illeana Douglas. And I'm like, I don't know how I can audition for that, but thank you. They're either going to go, it's my favorite audition story. They're either going to go black. I don't know who it's more offending. Is it
right
to the African American community or to me? But I came in and I remember like sitting there with the two other African American girls, and I was like, I know I'm not black, by the way. And like they did not think it was funny. Like I was like, watch how I make it my own. I'm just going to try to have fun with this But I just try to have fun, and oftentimes people are like not having it.
Well, it's all you can do is have fun.
Yeah,
I think in the end, because it should be fun.
So I want to talk a little bit about your experience because you've worked with so many great directors, Paul Schrader. I mean, what was your experience? I found Paul Schrader. I worked for Paul Schrader as a film publicist.
Was this when you were in the Brill Building?
Yes.
Yeah.
So Paul Schrader this was in the Brill Building, and I worked for the great film publicist, Peggy Siegel.
Quick side note, good stories in your book.
Yes, very good stories.
Thank you. Well, she was amazing.
Recently out in paperback, people.
Yes, on Amazon.
I'm going to see Peggy on Saturday, actually.
What?
Yeah.
Is this for the Warren Beatty?
No, some other event she's doing.
Peggy is the best. She's the
beer +1. See if you can go.
The best thing I ever did was to work for Peggy Siegel because I get invited to all the great parties, which was my whole goal when I worked for Peggy Siegel. That's what my roommate. That's all I did. I was like, I get to invite Walter Cronkite to a party. Like it's the easiest job in the world. But Paul Schrader, we worked with Paul Schrader among many other people. But boy, did I find he was very intimidating. He was one of the most intimidating people I ever came across. He'd just come in like, he'd get his Peggy around, and I'd be like, no, Paul, I was watching. Yeah, whatever. He's just like, like, you're nobody. You're not interesting. You're not smart.
No.
Oh, totally.
You worked with him on?
Two movies. I did Patty Hearst and Light Sleeper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And did he intimidate you?
Oh, at first, yeah. I mean, he's not a people person. He's not comfortable.
To say the least.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, he's super smart.
Yeah.
I
He's
like
a Calvinist.
Yes, not anymore, but yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked working with him as a director because he had a point of view, and he had his vision. And there's not a lot of directors left like that.
Yeah.
I think, that this is a Paul Schrader movie. And
He seems very cerebral. Is he cerebral as a director? Like, does he say, Dana, I want you to think about this? Or,
the only thing he said to me, which was sort of a total diss, was he said, "You don't have to do it the same way every time."
See, like that. Yeah, that's.
And I didn't think I was. I was just. I also was
He was missing your subtleties.
Yes, exactly. And I actually ended up liking the way. And I don't usually like my performances, and I liked it in that movie, so I was fine. I was.
Did you think he was doing it to get in your head, or did you think?
Yes,
he was
I think he likes
genuinely...
to play mind games. Yeah.
See, now I said this before. I have never had a good performance with someone who's trying to play mind games. The best directors I've ever worked for, Gus Van Sant, Martin Scorsese, try to create an atmosphere of trust where you go, okay, that was horrible. I know it was horrible. And everyone laughs, and then you go, all right, I swung for the fences. I'm sorry. Let me try something else. That's where, like, but the ones that are like, your mother maybe did, I don't. I'm like, what? What does my father have to do with this? So I.
No, but I have great fondness for him.
Yeah,
I do. I really do. I liked working with him. I wish he worked more, actually.
Well, he's very the body of work that he's done is very specific. I would have to say that. And then now, what about Gary Marshall? Like broad.
Have you ever worked with him?
I
must have.
I have another horror story, the Illeana Douglas show. Gary Marshall, who I adore. There were two people who cursed me in my career, and now they're both gone. And I adore both of them. Harold Ramis and Gary Marshall.
Oh, wow.
Literally every film they ever did would bring me into audition.
Yeah.
And I'd go, I don't know. Harold Ramis, I used to like, you are not going to put me in your movie, but thank you. I said, I'm literally at the point now where I'm coming in and I'm just going to say hi.
Did you audition for Groundhog Day?
Yes.
I auditioned for that.
Yeah. I auditioned for a part and got the part, and then they cut the role.
Oh, no.
I auditioned for a girl who puts a spell on Bill Murray, and I even have my script, and I went in and Harold Ramis asked me to improv because they didn't have the script yet. But in the very beginning of the movie, he plays this jerk, and he sleeps with a girl and never calls her again. And that girl puts a spell on him, which causes the whole Groundhog Day. And I got the part. And then Harold Ramis called me and said, "We've decided the movie works, is going to work better without you." And they were wrong, obviously.
Clearly.
Groundhog Day, whatever happened,
flop.
Bill Murray.
If only.
But now, who did you
lovely.
Did you audition for the Andy?
The Andy McDowell role.
You auditioned for a real part. I auditioned for like the freak part. Like, could you put this? Could you do something? I would always get part like, listen, we don't know what we're doing. Maybe if you come in, could you come in with something? So you try to do that. So but
Gary, yeah.
Broad.
Well, that was an unusual movie for Gary Exodean because, he was known for comedy, and the last movie he had done right before that was Pretty Woman, which was a huge hit.
Yeah.
And, the script never quite worked. It was always my side, which was the erotic drama side, and then there was the comedy side. And the Anne Rice book was all erotic drama, and it's actually really good. It's kind of like a book about how women think they're being empowered by being in control, but they're really not, and they need to let go of control.
Right.
And there was a good message in that, know. And it kind of got lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
But the only thing, and I adored Gary. He's always eating tuna fish. Always had food out of his mouth, and he's famous for that. And he always has his friends around laughing. But the only thing he said to me was, "You don't have to be funny. Just be real. I don't need you to be funny. They're going to be funny. You just be real." And I was like, "Really? I could be funny?" He goes, "No, I just want you to be real." I said, "Okay, fine." So I was not that part of the movie.
Not the funny part.
Yeah.
And
it was
what
like
about
two separate movies.
You also worked with Paul Mazursky.
Yes, I adored him.
Love.
On what did you work with him?
I did a movie called Moon Over Parador with Richard Dreyfuss, your hero.
Incredible movie.
And best friend of
and
Illeana.
best friend.
That movie
and
is
Raul
so funny.
Julia, who I adored.
Oh,
Loved him. And we shot in Brazil, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
In Ouro Preto. So that was fun. And I was supposed to only be there for a week, and then somebody had a problem, so I got to stay there for 3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I was in heaven. It was great.
I love that movie, and I love Paul. He seems like such a gentle. I did a play with him, but he was a great director. Again, quietly, just said, just
Exactly.
He was like that kind of like, not seemingly giving you direction, but giving you again an arena to work in. Who were some of your? Do you have favorite people that you worked with?
Like directors?
Yeah.
No.
When you did, who was directing Desperate Housewives?
By the time I got on the show, there was really 3 directors that they used over and over again, which I prefer. I personally cannot stand the TV system of having a new director every week because you end up being hostess to this director and worrying about them instead of your own performance, and they don't really know the show and sometimes you're off.
Yeah, I've often wondered about that because you know, as an audience member, you do see there's a different director all the time, and I've always wondered, there has to be a certain level of knowledge that they do or don't have, and what happens when they don't have it.
I think it should be 2 directors. That's it, and just alternate. I really believe that.
Well, it certainly sets a tone, again for what the show is like. Was the show really a reflection of the showrunner, of Mark Cherry?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah.
So would he always be on set, or again, is it a tone is set?
No, by the time I got on, which is I think the 4th season, they had gone through some issues that they worked out, and I think the 2nd season everybody agreed they kind of lost their way a little bit. So by the time I got on, Mark really cares about the comedy. That's what he cares about the most, and it's very specific comedy. And so he would be driven in a golf cart up to the set for every rehearsal. He'd be there for the rehearsal, and he'd come, now, this is what this is, this is what this is, this is what this is, be done, everybody got it, and then he'd leave. And then he'd come back for the next scene for the rehearsal. So he was definitely hands-on.
And Mark Cherry was, he worked on the Golden Girls, right?
Yeah.
So did he have any good, did he want it to be like what was the tone of the comedy when you said like he had a very specific idea of the comedy? I mean, the Golden Girls is sort of broad.
Yeah, it was.
But he wanted
it was
broad?
very classic setup joke kind of thing. He wanted to make sure. Oh, and you never moved on the joke, which is classic.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
That is classic.
Classic. Yeah.
That's classic.
Yeah.
That's hard to do though.
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
That's so, oh God, I love, that's very funny, Mark Cherry. Now, this is a show about Dennis Hopper, and you're the only person I know who went on a date. I'm so jealous of you.
I'm sorry.
Dish, we
played
want to
He
know.
played my love interest in a movie, but I didn't get to make out with him.
You didn't.
But it would have been like making out with my father. So he played my father figure type lover in the movie.
That's so
But
funny.
so you wanted to date, and how did this come about? Jesus, I want your life.
Your life is pretty great too, Illeana.
Yeah, stalking Richard Dreyfuss. Your life is like, yeah, Dana's awesome. Fix you up with her.
I was friends with Brian Hamill. Do you know Brian Hamill?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, a photographer?
Yes,
yes.
photographer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Many
And-
famous films.
Yes,
Worked
he
with
did
Woody
all
Allen.
of Woody Allen's movies. Yes. And I just moved to LA, and he said, you should meet my friend Dennis. And I was like, and I think Blue Velvet had just come out.
Oh, good
And
gracious.
I was terrified.
Yeah.
Yes,
I would
properly
be.
so.
But, I knew him from Rebel Without a Cause and,
Yeah.
all those great movies and Giant,
Yes.
which we saw. So
Yes.
I'm not going to pass that up. And he had just moved into that Frank Gehry house that he lived in Venice, which I also was a Frank Gehry fan, so I wanted to see the house.
Yes.
So I said, okay. So I met him at his house, and I was terrified. I was like a schoolgirl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like a big movie star.
Yeah.
And his daughter was there, Marin, who I think was my age, which was also
That's great.
strange, yeah.
Extra layer of interesting.
And then we went to West Beach Cafe, which is where everybody went back then. And
Wow.
we
So
sat
who's
in
like,
the booth.
give us who's at some of the other tables? I love stuff like this.
Oh, back then it was all, that was when all the artists went there. Like Edward Shea was hanging out there.
Unbelievable.
Billy Al Bankston, that was the art scene.
Yeah.
But anyway, I remember I think he's shy. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think he's shy, and I'm shy, and it was kind of painful.
Yeah.
So I just kept asking him questions about old movies. Like I wanted to know about Gloria Graham, and I wanted to know about her marriage to Nick Ray, and I wanted to know if it was true about her stepson and all that. And I don't know if you know the story, but she ended up marrying her stepson.
Oh.
It's crazy, yeah.
Yes, so he validated all of that.
Wow. Mm-hmm. He also, didn't he have an affair with Elizabeth Taylor and Natalie Wood?
I knew about Natalie Wood. I didn't know about Elizabeth Taylor.
Wait, so did you go on just one date with him?
That was it.
Oh, no love
Just
connection,
one
as Chuck
date.
Woolery would say.
Yeah, I think, and we went back to his place, and he made a suggestion of romance, but I was like, I gotta go.
He made a suggestion, and then he took out this mask.
Exactly.
That would be.
He's got really red.
Did you learn anything about him, like at dinner, that sort of surprised you? Because I mean, that's the challenge. How do you date a movie star?
Yeah.
How do you even become friends?
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing that you realize is he is as shy as he was very shy and awkward. I think people like that need somebody, more like you, I think, who's willing to get them out of their shell and,
but sometimes you can risk them, them I've definitely had that where I've crossed the line where you're kidding around. When I worked with Buck Henry, he was first he was all excited, I was like, so Buck, when you did Catch 22, and by the third day I would see him with his lunch tray going, hi Illeana, don't leave me alone, But
I will say that years later, I briefly had an assistant, which I don't have assistants anymore. But you know that phase in your career, you're like, yeah, I need an assistant. Where she saw him at something, and he knew somehow he knew that she was my assistant. He said to her, "What's up with Dana and that exit to Eden?"
Really?
It's it was this whole side of me he didn't know.
Whoa.
He was like, if I'd known then.
Right?
See, it was so, I don't know. Yeah, to me, it's so interesting. God, I'd kill to go on a date with Dennis Hopper.
Another one, too late.
Yeah. I know, all the people. Well, I turned down my big, you don't have to name names unless you really want to, but, my big show business regret is not having sex with Marlon Brando. That's my, not that I, but I suspect, and all my other friends.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah, I suspect too.
So I got the invitation.
I think so.
Yeah.
Got the invitation, go to his house, and I said no, and that's my big show business regret. Did you have any show business regrets like that? If they're gone, maybe it was Dennis Hopper.
No.
He's scarred for life. They have penicillin too. I mean, no.
You mean where you had a chance and you didn't go?
Yeah,
for
was there
it?
people? Whoa, set romances? Do you ever do set? I am against them, but how do you feel?
I used to. I don't believe in them anymore.
They're a menace.
Yeah, they do. I had one relationship work out. One that was good.
That from a set romance.
Yeah,
wasn't like the movies. Again, deep regrets of I've had the opportunity and I just didn't do it. I was too much of a purist. I didn't want to ruin the movie.
Yeah. I tended to have affairs with the camera assistant.
Interesting. Oh, so you were one of those.
Or the focus puller, because they're just watching you so intently.
So interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of actresses have had relationships with their cameramen. I mean, Julia Roberts, his husband.
Oh, right.
But I've seen, so you see the two. I remember being on a movie, and I was once again on the outside looking in through the fog. But yeah, the DP was totally in love with my co-star, and lighting her beautiful. And I kept trying to get him to look. He could care less about me.
Well, I think DPs are fascinating because it's the left brain, right brain thing. You have to have both to be a cinematographer, and I find that fascinating.
Yes.
You have to be an artist, but also understand the mechanics.
Yes.
And I think that's a really smart person.
Yes. I always went for the director. That was my,
Aim high.
I wasn't as interested. I love actors. I love them, but they're a little bit just too much in love with themselves. And the director, I felt like I became like, they would have somebody at his shoulder to cry on or something. So I always kind of enjoyed that, being in that position.
Yeah.
So we just did our show. Let's talk a little bit about trailblazing women in film for TCM. That's how we met doing the show. It just ended. It was it's such an honor every year to do.
You got some great people.
Oh my God. I mean, Jane Fonda.
What a thrill for you.
Bette Midler, Dana Delany.
Well,
to talk to people. My mom was so excited. Well, I always everything for me is really about my mom. She's like, "Did you tell Dana that we're from Connecticut?" The first thing I did.
Did you
Mom.
tell her we discussed drive-in movies?
Yes. That's all she wants to. She said, every time I talk to her, I go, "I'm seeing Dana today. Did you tell her that we go to Beach Donuts down in Clinton and their picture is there?"
I got to tell you this, speaking of your family, I just watched a movie with your grandfather that I'd never seen, Third Finger Left Hand.
Yes.
With Myrna Loy.
Yeah.
My God, he was hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
Because I knew him in his later movies when he was more
serious.
serious. Yeah, like I Never Sang for My Father and being there. But he was so goofy.
He was very, very silly and goofy. And I love that part of him. I mean, and a lot of the movies, that he did, these early comedies. When I knew him as a kid, he was in his more serious phase, and I would always want to ask him about those comedies. He sort of scoffed at them.
But he was good.
He was amazing.
He was so loose.
I know. Very modern. Very very kind of modern. He had an amazing life. Just in terms of his career, he was born in Georgia. And then he was in something called the Jesse Bonestell Players. He was with Ralph Bellamy and Gail Sondergaard.
Oh my God!
So they traveled around. They did,
I love Ralph Bellamy.
Imagine like little tent shows and just like the back ends of show business, and then made it to Broadway and discovered by Gloria Swanson and brought to Hollywood, and just an amazing career. But very funny, very literate. Yeah, and I love those. Those comedies.
And he was like Myrna Loy's, besides William Powell, a favorite leading man.
Yeah, and I talked about this experience with Jane Fonda, which was surreal. I was like, can you imagine being a kid like Myrna Loy's because they lived right near each other, as did Paulette Goddard, as did Senia Hasso. They had done a play together called The Waltz of the Toreadors. But I would sit there at the dinner table with these amazing women, and I just would think it was so
what was Myrna Loy like?
Oh, they would talk politics.
Yeah.
That was always, it was very kind of serious. They never talked about movies, and I would sit there and be like, oh my God, I want to ask about Mr. Blandings, and it was always about the current president and political situation.
But that's great. I'm happy to hear that.
But it was amazing. She was very sweet, and I remember too, after my father had passed away, that she was incredibly nice, wrote me a wonderful letter, as did Ralph Bellamy. And I thought that was really, every once in a while, I was like, I feel like sometimes I should bring in some of my memorabilia just to show people.
You should.
Well, because I had a friend over, and I have this.
And we won't sell any in the garage sale.
In the celebrity garage sale, which is my next idea.
To come.
But I'd showed, I was like, look at this letter from Myrna Loy. People like, oh my God.
Yeah. Right.
I know.
Speaking of Ralph Bellamy, I got to tell you, when I did House Sitter with Frank Oz, who's a director I loved working with.
Yes.
Loved him. I was cast as Steve Martin's, not the girl that ends up with him. And I said to him, it's the Ralph Bellamy role. And he said, you are right. It's the Ralph Bellamy role. So he called me Ralph through the whole movie.
Oh,
that was my
that's
name.
Great.
I said, it's Ralph Bellamy and his girl Friday. That's the role. He goes, yeah.
He never got the girl.
Never got the girl.
Ralph Bellamy.
No.
Mm-hmm. But when we did the show, I don't know if you got to see any of it, but if you had any sort of, I thought that it was hard to pick out favorites, but I think the discussion that I had with Lee Grant about the blacklist, it just blew my mind, you know, the idea that, I don't know, that this could still sort of happen, you know, that people, that women were blacklisted because their husbands were communists.
Right.
Right.
And that whole idea of that. And
Just the association.
Right.
And just the struggle of, we talked about this actress named Dorothy Comingore, who I had no idea of her story, that she was in the movie Citizen Kane, and
She was the wife, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and,
or the mistress. The mistress.
yeah,
Yeah.
Susan Kane, and that Hearst so despised her performance that he decided to ruin her career, and went even as far as to like set up a phony thing. She got arrested for prostitution. I mean, just crazy stuff.
And then I'm sure Hedda Hopper helped him with all of
Oh
that.
yeah. So literally, like, again, just, you know, put her in her place and ruined her career, and just that idea of, you know, for actresses, again, just this idea that sometimes it still feels
Oh,
like
it still goes on.
I know
Definitely.
it still feels like you're 1 inch away from, like, geez, don't be Dorothy Comingore here, don't
Yeah, no, it still goes on.
you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, we always think about things getting better, but I mean, and they're saying that things getting better, but it's like, it doesn't really feel like that much better. It still feels like sexism is sort of rampant,
Yeah,
alive and well.
and also, you know, the whole discussion that's being held now because of Trump is, you know, sexual harassment.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've dealt with that. I've dealt with that in our business.
I call it being an actress. I
Yeah.
was like,
I call it being a human, being
Yeah,
a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I mean,
I'm glad
seriously.
that's
Yeah.
coming out again, you know? I mean, Rose McGowan made that really firm statement about that.
absolutely. I
Yeah.
know. I was and it'll be interesting again with someone like Rose McGowan. It feels so awful as a woman to go, wow, I really admire her. Oh, geez,
Yeah.
I would never do that. It's never
Right.
going to work again.
Right.
Because I think we've all had that experience where, like, yeah, that's happened to me 5 or 6
Right.
times.
No,
And if I ever
I've
said
actually
anything,
had
I'd never
a
work
director
again.
say to me, "You will never work in this town." I mean, he actually used that, and I was all of 24, and I thought, my career's over already?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's that, you know, that fear, and unless you can express to people like what it feels like when somebody says that, well, she never said anything, she never spoke up. It's like, who would believe you?
Of
know?
course.
Mm-hmm.
I
course.
mean, no, you know, one of these days, I have an actress friend who has a very, very famous person she did a movie with, and she had this experience, and she's like, we should all, like, name all these people, not to hurt them, but just to say, like, he did this to me.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, yeah, that ought to go over really well.
Right.
Like, you know, it just, you can't, still, it's so taboo that you can't,
Yeah.
I don't think you can talk about it.
Yeah.
Even the people who do it, I don't want to, I see them.
Mm-hmm.
My mom sees them.
Mhm.
She goes, every time I see him on
Because
television.
you've told your mom.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Every time I see him, you
Yeah.
know, but it's like, yeah, what are you going to do? We're in the guy's way. He's got married, he's got
Yeah.
kids, and you feel a certain responsibility of like, I'm here, I survived. But then the other part of you is really angry
Yes.
and really rageful, and how much that sort of was an upsetting experience, and why do you feel as a woman? This is I always I approach this a lot in my work, the self-victimization that
Exactly.
women,
That's the worst thing.
and I
What
do
we
a
to
lot of that. I'm
ourselves.
like, I
Yeah.
probably deserved it. I probably did something that,
Right.
why do I want to hurt him?
Yeah. Why did I put myself in that position?
Yeah. And,
Oh God, we got to stop talking about it.
all right. We're going to end on a more positive note.
Yeah.
What are some of the things, you were just in the show, which I loved, called Hand of God.
Mm-hmm.
And, but what are you working on these days?
I have a movie coming out called, it's actually funny how I got this job. It's called Literally Right Before Aaron, which is a handful.
Uh-huh.
And Ryan Eggold wrote and directed it, who stars on The Blacklist
Uh-huh.
with James Spader.
Yes.
And I met him. This is fantastic. I did Hollywood Game Night. Did you ever watch
Oh
that?
yeah,
With
sure.
Jane Lynch?
Jane Lynch.
Sure.
So Ryan, me, and Leah Thompson were a team.
Wow.
And we
Fun.
were a good team, and our guy that we were playing for was so good and so smart, and the other team was bad, and they won, and I'm still pissed about it because we should have won. And I felt bad for the guy, 'cause we
Yeah.
were playing for
You
him.
were playing for, yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, out of the blue, I get this call from my agent saying, Ryan Eggold wants you to be in his movie. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. And I said, well, what is it? He wrote the script, and there's a part, it's just one scene, but, and I said, oh, and Leah Thompson's in it. And I went, oh, he's putting the band back together.
Oh, that's great.
So I play I say her name wrong. Kobe Smulders. I keep wanting to say Colby. Kobe Smulders' mother, and Leah Thompson plays Justin Long's mother.
All righty. And when does this movie?
I think next year.
Did you ever
sometime.
play like a Southerner?
I have played Southerners.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Could see you doing like. Suddenly, as you were talking, I sort of projected on you like you were making pies or something. What about a musical? Did you see the musical, The Waitress?
No, I haven't seen it yet. No. Is it good?
Beautiful, beautiful.
Okay, so did you, having done, Grace of My Heart,
Yes.
You must have seen Beautiful.
Yes, I did, and wonderful. There's so many. I love Carole King, and there's so many other great stories out of the Brill Building. All the singer songwriters out of that. I love the Brill Building.
Yeah.
So anyway, well, Dana, thank you so much for being here, and please
Thanks,
come
Illeana.
back
Thank you.
anytime.
Thanks for
Anytime you have a
having me.
project or you want to talk about movies, we're here.
Yes, we are. Her website is danadelaney.com.
Actually, that's no longer. I'm just on
What?
Twitter.
You just on Twitter?
I'm just on Twitter.
Strike
Just
that.
simpler.
She's just on Twitter at Dana Delaney. Thank you so much, Dana,
Thank you.
for being with us. You can buy Illeana's book, I Blame Dennis Hopper.
And definitely, it's a good read. Buy it.
It
Buy
is.
Oh,
It's
thank
so good. It's now out on paperback. And also look at our page on Facebook. Check out our website, Illeana'sPodcast.com.
Absolutely. And if you want us to start doing Celebrity Garage Sale, let me know, because I'll start bringing in things
We're going to be talking
from
about
my
that. I'm
closet,
telling you.
props from movies. We'll start selling them for charity.
Yep, we're
if
gonna
people
do it.
are interested, I might have a little, few trinkets from Goodfellas.
Oh.
Just saying.
Dangle that
So
out there.
I am going to say, as we always do, everyone's life is a movie with a beginning, a middle, and an end, and this is our end. Thanks. Thank you. Have a good day.
See you next time.
Yay.
Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, Kristian Harloff, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network. We would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of its owners or principals.
From producers Maria Menounos.